Hello, my name is Logan Brown, and today I'll be doing my policy change presentation on eliminating COVID mandates. First, in May of 2021, according to a Washington Post article, there was a concert that was held in Florida that discriminated against unvaccinated Americans. Vaccine prices, those who were vaccinated paid a price of $18 per ticket, while those who were unvaccinated paid a price of $1,000 per ticket. They were trying to prevent unvaccinated Americans from attending their concert, and they price hiked them, making their ability to come to the concert nearly impossible. This isn't the only example throughout our country over the last couple of years of discriminatory activity and actions towards unvaccinated Americans. Unvaccinated Americans have lost thousands of jobs. Many were forced out of the military, out of the labor force. Many weren't allowed to attend certain universities due to their vaccine requirements, as well as people weren't allowed to attend certain venues or sporting events solely on their vaccine status. Now that we know more information on COVID and our ability to live with it, these COVID mandates should be completely dropped and unvaccinated Americans should be treated better. Some background to this: in March of 2020, COVID became a national emergency and a shutdown was implemented. The vaccine became available in December 2021. Government officials implemented many mask mandates and vaccine mandates over the course of a couple years. As research came along, we learned that the survival rate for COVID is over 99%, and we learned that we could live with COVID through certain suggestions, and we also learned which groups are high and lower risk. So these COVID mandates have some significant harms. The first one is the constitutional rights that were threatened. Throughout the mandates, they intruded on our freedom of speech and our right to think for ourselves. Under the First Amendment, we are protected to petition, protest, assemble, and our right to choose and be able to think for ourselves. According to John Stossel, who's a U.S. reporter, he found in North Carolina during the stay-at-home mandates that there's protesters protesting the mandate, and if local authorities came and deemed their protest non-essential activity, which then resulted in them either being arrested or forcing them to go back home. And under the First Amendment, we are protected to protest and be able to petition. Another example by John Stossel was found during the shutdown in LA. The LA mayor threatened to shut off running water to all those who do not comply. So those who had different opinions, that didn't feel like they needed to get the vaccine or needed to wear a mask in certain settings, were threatened the right of their own running water to their own house. So America's core values that is built on freedom, the freedom of choice, freedom of think, freedom to do what you think is best for you and your family, were threatened as seen in LA and North Carolina. Secondly, a significant harm of COVID mandates was the mental health aspect. According to a USC study, they studied students who wore the mask during the mask mandate and saw an increased level in anxiety and depression levels. They saw that their social aspects were threatened, and they didn't have as many social skills and ability to connect with one another as previous generation of students did. According to Recovery Village, they found that an increase in drug and alcohol usage occurred due to these mandates. People were left bored and hopeless, and a lot of them resorted to substance abuse. As seen in this chart on my slide, there showed the increase in cocaine, fentanyl, heroin, and meth from the time of COVID becoming a national emergency and the mandates being implemented. It just goes to show you that these mandates caused people to feel anxious, depressed, and substance abuse was on the rise. A third aspect that was affected harmfully because of the mandates was unemployment. According to U.S. Becker Report and U.S. News, they found that unemployment reached nearly 15% during these mandates and forced many people out of the workforce. Well, since then, the unemployment rate has returned back down, but those who are unvaccinated had a harder time finding new jobs as they were forced out. Many military members lost their jobs due to these mandates, and it was something that seriously affected many, many families in America over the last couple of years. This problem is inherited because of COVID. In 2020, there was a lot of uncertainty. People didn't know what to expect from COVID, and the mandates were justifiable. COVID was a real and dangerous disease. The CDC found that over 1.1 million Americans have died since the start of the pandemic. And as time went on, research has advanced. Now that we know more about COVID and know that we could live with it, the refusal of the vaccine shouldn't be forced upon people in order to be in the workforce or to attend colleges. My plan is to make mask wearing and vaccines completely optional, so dropping all mandates altogether in all settings and social settings. The government can recommend careful measures for those in high-risk situations or high-risk individuals, such as those of older age or with underlying health issues. In order to protect our freedoms and prevent this from happening again, we need to bring forth public awareness and hold our policymakers accountable through voting or through sending letters to officials and local authorities. This will solve our problem by being able to return thousands of Americans to the workforce, specifically those in the military and health industry that lost their jobs for the refusal of getting the vaccine. Government agencies and major U.S. institutions should not discriminate against unvaccinated Americans anymore. They should be allowed to get the same jobs and positions and be able to attend the colleges that they want, so based off of ability, not on vaccine status. Ultimately, eliminating COVID mandates will protect our freedoms in the Constitution, help increase our mental health and unemployment, while also protecting families and preventing unvaccinated Americans from being discriminated. Thanks for listening.